Got it.
And once it
Okay.
goes live on Facebook, then feel free to start. I'm just gonna set it up real quick right now.
All right.
I like this Brady Bunch setup, right?
I know. You got 9 people.
Actually kind of
no
fun.
more. No more. That's enough. Okay, and you want it to be recorded like this, or do you want it to be recorded with the view of the talker?
I think the view of the talker is better.
Okay, so you can change that, Jared?
I will change that. We'll do speaker. Does that change it for everybody, or?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
As long as you're recording. For me, I have gallery view right now.
Yeah, I think it's per user. I think you can.
Oh, okay. As long as you're recording and it's on speaker, that is great. Okay.
Okay.
All right. No nose blowing during the thing. That was my. All right. Are we ready to go Facebook Live?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
All right.
Let's share the page. Our 9 team.
How's my hair?
At least you have hair, Gary.
All right. Now you're ready.
Right. Yep. It said it's being streamed live, right?
Yep.
We're live.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Martin Eiden team November 1st fall market update, the residential market update for New York City, specifically Manhattan and Brooklyn. I'm happy everybody is here. We're recording this. We're going to have some YouTube snippets of this afterwards. I want to introduce everybody here that's with us today. So first and foremost, I want to introduce Gary Katz of Ross & Katz, who is our attorney at large that has helped us in many deals. Say hi, Gary, and tell us a little bit about yourself real quick.
Hi, everyone. Gary Katz. I am a residential real estate attorney. I've been practicing for about 17 years. This is all I do. I'm not a general practitioner who dabbles in multiple areas of law. And like Martin said, I've been working with the team now for several years, and I'm excited to continue the relationship. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem, Gary. It's always a pleasure seeing you. Next, I have Alex Magoob, who is, I have a bunch of amazing people on the team. Alex Magoob goes by Super Broker. So say hi, Alex. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. I've been on the team now 6 years. I've been at Compass even longer than that. I've been doing real estate in New York City for 16 years. I love what I do. And I'm really excited to talk a little bit about the market today.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. Next up is Ramses Haji. Ramses is also, we now call him Ramses the Great. He graduated from the Wonder Kid to Ramses the Great. Ramses, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ramses, and I'm part of the Martin Eiden team. I started as a Wonder Kid, but now I have graduated. And I'm excited to be on the team. Lately, I've been doing a lot of expiry listings, so cold calling. But today I'm going to speak about buyers because I have picked up a lot of them in the open houses.
Oh, very good, Ramses. Thank you. Next, I have Clement Merchansky, who is our newest member and is going to take the world by storm. Clement, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be with all of you guys. Seems like a very interesting topic. I've been doing real estate for almost 10 years now. At first I was a real estate investor, then real estate broker. I recently joined the team as a real estate agent a couple of months ago. I'm really excited to be part of the team. So yeah, thank you.
Excellent. And last but not least, we have Mike Stein of Wells Fargo, our mortgage extraordinaire. Why don't you say hi, Mike, and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Martin. Thanks for the team. It's great to be on this panel. I've been with Wells for almost 19 years, been in the industry for almost 20. So I've been through a bunch of cycles. So I'm happy to give a lot of my knowledge, expertise to this panel so I can, help you guide through, these interest rates, etc. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate it. So first and foremost, Alex Magoo, why don't you tell us what's going on with quote unquote the state of the market? And we, in the past, we've done, you know, intro buyers, first time sellers, all this stuff. This is an advanced conversation with advanced topics. So what's happening out there, Alex? And can you give us an overview?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Martin. So right now, all of us in real estate are dealing with a very challenging market. The main culprit behind that has been rising interest rates, which have made buying more expensive because financing is more expensive. There has been a direct correlation between interest rates going up and buyer demand going down. And this is just not a New York phenomenon. This is a national phenomenon. Real estate is hurting almost everywhere. And why? Why? Because if someone bought a home 5 or 10 years ago and they have an interest rate of 3% or 4%, and they're thinking about leaving and looking at the market, number one, there's not a lot of inventory out there because people are, you know, locked to their current home. So they're looking and they're not seeing much out there. But then if they do find something and they crunch the numbers, it's going to be very expensive for them to leave this great interest rate environment and buy something else. So number one, sellers are not even listing their properties on the market. The buyers who are out there looking at properties, the pricing hasn't come down to offset the rise in interest rates. So many buyers who are thinking about buying or curious about buying as they poke around, a lot of them are deciding to renew their leases or table the search for next year. And it's been really tough out there. The people who are selling are of properties that are priced really well, very attractive to entice buyers to come in and see the properties. A lot of times these are properties that are one-of-a-kind properties, really special and, you know, great views, great finishes, great locations. Right now, the people buying are the people that have to buy. These are the people who are relocating to New York City and they don't want to rent. These are people who are having babies. This could be a situation where someone is downsizing, the kids are gone. There's no reason for them to have a 4-bedroom home. You might have situations where people are divorcing and splitting up, and that's why they're selling. You know, you could have a death in the family, an estate sale. They need to get rid of the property and, you know, spread the money around the family. So what we're seeing in this marketplace is that the people who are transacting are the people that have to transact. The need buyer, the need seller, the wishy-washy, I kind of want to buy person is really gone. They are on the sidelines. Ultimately, I think that's a mistake because right now, because there is limited demand, and sellers that really need to sell are willing to negotiate. So my buyers in this market are getting really good deals because sellers, they don't have many options. So if you come in and you're a well-qualified buyer with a serious offer on the table, a lot of times sellers are saying, no way, no way. And then a couple of weeks later, they're circling back like, maybe some way, what's going on? You know, willing to try to make a deal work. And what I've also noticed in this market is the cash buyer that is less impacted or, you know, not impacted at all by rising interest rates. They have the liquid funds available and they're out there, you know, really trying to grab a great deal. And out of all the different markets I've seen, to me, this is one of the best markets, I think, to be a buyer in if you have the funds available to transact.
Oh, that's great, Alex. Thank you. And you touched it. It was an excellent overview, very transparent, very you know, pragmatic, which is what we try to be here on the team. Which rolls
no
into
sugarcoating here. No sugarcoating. We're the doctors. We're giving you the feedback. You know,
right? As you would say, Alex, what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear, right? With that, it's a nice segue to talk with you, Mike, over at Wells Fargo there. With interest rates, that is the big topic. What's going on? So why don't you give us a little kind of maybe a recap of how this all started and where we are now, and where you think we're going. You know, again, your crystal ball is as good as mine.
No, absolutely. Thanks again. And, to kind of recap, it's, the Fed had to make a, tough decision. I mean, we printed a significant amount of money during the pandemic, and, it didn't really hit inflation, until they started seeing data towards the end of, let's say, 2021. So they didn't really start to, push interest rates until probably, I think it was either January, February of, 2022. And then they had to do it very quickly, because inflation was just getting out of control because people just kept spending on, goods and products and, gas, etc. And the data was just showing that the spending just kept going. So the Fed had to act quickly and to increase short-term interest rates in such a quick way to try and, fend off the high percentage of inflation. And and it was going to take a while, and they knew that. Also thinking, like, going into, election year, they had to make sure they, proactively made these decisions in order to try and stop increasing short-term interest rates. And that's what basically happened today in terms of the Fed. The Fed talked, amongst us all, live today, and said that short-term interest rate we're going to hold. Monetary policy we're going to, stay the same. But their course is that if economic data does change quickly, they're going to react. The committee is going to react. They're going to, reduce, short-term interest rates if they have to. But a lot of this is really focusing on the labor market. So once we start to see unemployment start to increase and more data comes into place, I do think that you're going to start to see a soften on yields, which we actually saw today based on what was discussed. So we saw an improvement on rates based on the outlook. Everything is based on outlook. So I know when you start to view the television, they say interest rates are at an all-time high, but a lot of times the data is, from the media perspective, is always delayed because we see it for, upfront right away. So it's always important to, check in with us because interest rate actually might be lower compared to what you're seeing online. So we're seeing it now. The outlook does seem promising towards, I would say, to be realistic, more like, May, June in 2024, where they might just start to pull back. I mean, that's what basically was discussed today on CNBC, that they're probably not looking until the summer of 2024. So the good thing part of this is that they're holding on short-term interest rate. They will react depending on international development, depending on economic data. So I think we're going to see some fluctuation on mortgage rates from now until they start to reduce short-term interest rates. So what I've been kind of telling, a lot of my buyers is that, like you said, there's room to negotiate in terms of what inventory is out there. New development is a great piece too, because I think developers want to get rid of some of the inventory. So, your negotiating power could be, towards that inventory. So I'm seeing that, developers are willing to do a permanent buy down. So that is something to consider when jumping in this type of market. And the other aspect is that you want to marry the apartment and date the rate. The rate is always, something that you can refinance, get out of it. Most banks in some cases do modifications. What does that mean on jumbo loans? It's not guaranteed, but there's a possibility you can, when you refinance, the bank might come back and say, you know what, here's the rate. We're not going to go through the entire process and lower your rate at that time. We did that during the pandemic because it helped offset capacity. So it's very likely, and when customers secure a 30-year fixed rate, it's very, it's a higher chance to get a modification on those loans. So that's something very important. I like the buy downs. Other things that banks are doing, as well as Wells Fargo, is relationship pricing. So in this market, if you have assets, post assets after closing, and you have a good amount of money, you can discount those rates to see lower on your payments. Everybody's looking for the lower payment. You can look at doing relationship pricing. You can look at interest only. So a lot of buyers that have bonus or commission or RSUs, which is restricted stock units that vest every quarter, you could look at possibly looking at interest only to try and reduce your payments. And then when the time comes, you can refinance out of it. So there's no prepayment penalties on these loans, because people ask me all the time. You can get it out of any time you want. So likelihood is, you might see this rate for 12 to 18 months, but then you could just easily get out of it. So you have to look at it that you're getting in now instead of waiting for everybody else that are, on the sidelines. Like all those people that are on the sidelines, do you really want to wait and then everybody jumps in at one time and then all of a sudden you have a bidding war? Whereas I think if you like an inventory, you like a location, and you want to get into it, it's right now you just got to think, okay, the payment is going to be higher now, but later on down the road, you can refinance, reduce it, and then you feel comfortable, and then you got the home that you truly actually wanted instead of actually going a little bit smaller. You have to also think of it that way when buying in this type of market. Permanent buy downs are great. What does that mean? It basically means that you're paying discount points to lower the interest rate. I'm also seeing a lot of cash deals. The question is that are you taking a margin against your assets to buy the property? I'm always a fan of that because you have to talk to your CPA because there's tax ways to try and save on the interest too. Because ultimately you can still receive the interest deduction depending on you paying the full cash to buy the apartment. So I always advise customers check with their CPA because if you're going to buy in cash and use securities, you might be able to deduct the entire interest and then take our money and then invest that money so that way you're not seeing so much of a difference on your payment, and you're gaining money on, of course, your money by investing it, of course. So there's a lot of things that you have to think about. Cash recoup is key. You have to do it within 90 days. So just remember that it's very important. I'm doing a fair amount of those type of loans. Permanent buy downs. There's seller concessions. So if a seller really needs to get out of their apartment, like you said, it's a need. And sometimes they will offer a seller concession so that they can finance the closing costs or give up some of the equity so you can finance the closing cost. And another piece that I actually did the other day is make sure you're asking if it's a condo, look at a purchase SEMA. If the seller has, a large mortgage on it, you can technically save the buyer as well as the seller because the transfer tax could end up being less for the seller because you're doing an assignment on that. So it's another thing that we can strategize to save the buyer in terms of closing cost, get them into the property that they truly want, and then later on, of course, they would refinance. I mean, there's so many different ways to look at lowering your payments, relationship pricing, concession in this type of market and still be able to buy it instead of rent, because renting you're paying somebody's mortgage. So it's the best time for me to help kind of navigate through this type of market, use the expertise. I just have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to mortgages. I know the appetite of Wells Fargo. Having that type of experience, goes a long way. And just, working as a team. I always say like the team, between Martin's team, my team, Gary, we'll talk next, having the right team in this type of market makes the process so much better. And that's kind of what I wanted to bring up.
That's great, Mike. I really appreciate that. So what I'm getting at, what I'm hearing, just as a quick executive summary, right, is that these high interest rates have come in as a reactionary force to combat the high inflation that we were having across. And nobody likes high inflation, and the Fed is very much against that. So we're in a, I'm going to say temporary moment of time here. Temporary, maybe. We've been doing this for about a year. It sounds like maybe another 6 months, maybe 12. So it's kind of an 18, 4-month cycle that we're in, right? But you're going to be owning a home for decades. So it's a short-term bump in the road, if you will, with a long-term thing going on. And that Mike has introduced tools to you, the buyers, and the sellers, so you're fully aware. There's buy down options, buying down the points. New developments, developers are doing that for you. The SEMA you talked about, where the transfer tax is usually split between, and we'll talk to Gary about that in a minute. And then the third thing is relationship banking. But I think the biggest takeaway is that this is a temporary thing. Maybe do the interest only, at the 7-10 year arm, and then when rates come back down again, then you can refinance.
And the people, sorry to cut you off, the people that get in now, just think about everybody that's on the sideline. If they jump in, you could see appreciation in terms of value. or equity. Like if you get it now, you get a good price. And a year from now, you got all these buyers in the market and they start to increase those prices, then you just established equity. So you have to also think it about that way. So it's another piece to get into the market because of, possibly adding the equity to your, diversifying your portfolio.
Oh, I agree. Which is a good segue for you, Gary. Go ahead. I was just
Just real quick. Mike mentioned buy downs and SEMAs and all that stuff. And then you mentioned ARMs. Mike, is ARMs still a good option for first-time buyers who may see this as a stepping stone?
A lot of times what we're doing is I'm selling mostly 10-year ARMs as well as the 30-year fixed. 10-year ARMs might be a quarter lower, but the yield curve is so close to each other on the 7-year ARM that the bank is not really giving much on the 7-year ARM. So the 10-year is more attractive than instead of the 7. The 7 is very short. So I just been saying, well, if the spread is not there on the 7, I'm not really, forcing the 7. I'm really more focused on the 10 or the 30. And that's kind of where I think the best solution for buyers that are entering in the market.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Gary, for asking that. So Gary, we talked about SEMA here a little bit. We'll kind of open that with you. And we had this on the pre-call a little bit yesterday. Can you just explain exactly the SEMA and how it works and how it doesn't work, or the pluses and minuses?
So what a SEMA stands for is a consolidation extension modification agreement. And what it means is, rather than paying off the seller's mortgage and satisfying it as a matter of record, the current lender will assign the mortgage to your new lender, the purchaser's lender, and then they would essentially take over the loan and then modify it to the terms that the purchaser is receiving. The benefit comes in that New York State has this horrible thing called mortgage recording tax, and it varies by county. The five boroughs are all the same, and it depends on how much the mortgage is, but it can be upwards of 1.925% of the mortgage amount. So if you're borrowing $1 million, it's over $19,000 just in a mortgage recording tax. So what the SEMA does is it allows you to avoid the mortgage recording tax on the existing principal balance of the current loan that's being assigned. The concept is that the mortgage tax has already been paid on that money, so it shouldn't have to be paid again. So as Mike said, if the seller has a outstanding loan that's a pretty high current principal balance, it's worth exploring. The first question you have to ask is whether your lender will accept it. The second question you have to ask is whether the current lender will be willing to do the assignment. And the third will be a cost analysis and to see if it's worth it, because there are some additional costs. I won't get into, too many of them, but basically each bank may charge an assignment fee, or the first bank may assign an assignment fee. Your bank may charge an additional lawyer fee or legal fee for the additional paperwork, and there's also additional recording fees involved. So it has to be worth it, and that would all that depends on the numbers of the transaction.
Okay, thank you, Gary. That was a really great detailed dive on that. With contracts going out there now, what are you seeing? When in the hot and frothy 2021, everybody was sign yesterday, or I've got 5 people behind you. What's going on now?
I think it's more sign. I'm seeing now more sign yesterday because people don't have that many deals, so they want to lock up the deals that they do have as soon as possible. So it's a different kind of pressure. Hello?
No, go ahead.
It's a different kind of pressure to get the contract signed quickly. But as a buyer, you have to make sure that your lawyer is going to do their due diligence and represent you properly, and you tell everyone, my lawyer's doing his or her job, and we're going to keep, we're still interested, and you get it done. But yes, the pressure to get a contract signed within a week to 2 weeks is as prevalent as it ever was.
Understood. Are you seeing more deals fall apart with buyer hesitation right now, or about the same, or what's going on in that aspect?
I have seen some last minute cold feet. I have seen some people not get the mortgage that they thought they were going to get. Some lenders have these first time home buyers programs. And if you know that you're going to be applying for it, you should make your attorney aware of it so they can even almost write it into the contract and say, hey, look, we're applying for Chase, real property, first time home buyer, special mortgage. And if we don't get it, we're not going to be able to afford the property. But yes, the deals, I am seeing deals fall apart at various stages of, before and after a contract.
Okay, a little bit more volatility going on than perhaps normally seen. What advice do you have for sellers to kind of hedge that a little bit, or to try to minimize a failure rate?
I think, as far as, unfortunately, there's no way to control any of this. You can't help it if someone gets nervous at the last minute before they put the pen to paper. The financing stuff, you rely that that your loan officer did his due diligence, that the broker did, vetted the people properly, and that everyone's going to do what they're supposed to do. Unfortunately, I wouldn't have a job if everyone did what they were supposed to do all the time. So you just have to take it with a grain of salt and understand this is a market we're in right now. And as Alex alluded to, this is a big reason why a lot of sellers aren't moving. Because of the volatility.
Very good.
Or a lot of people aren't becoming sellers, I should say.
Right. No, that makes sense to me. So thanks, Gary, on that. So moving back, let's talk about buyers a little bit. Ramses, do you want to tell us about buyers? Now, I know Alex and Ramses both work with buyers and sellers. But Ramses, why don't you tell us a little bit about buyers, of what you're seeing and what's going on out there?
Yeah, of course, Martin. Well, Alex spoke briefly about buyers, and like he said, they are patiently waiting, they are following the market, and usually buyers are the first one to know the state of the market. They know if it's a buyer's market, they know if it's a multiple offers market. You have all kind of buyers, but most of them are smart buyers. Unless it's a townhouse in Brooklyn, I'm saying it's a buyer's market right now. And
Yep.
I work with buyers, and when we go to the showings, you can feel the frustration of the other brokers. The buyers, they sense that. So when you get an offer of 10 to 15% under, it's because they have sensed you. Having said that, I have a couple of examples where I went with my buyer, and they're like, hey, do you think your buyer will put an offer? We know we are overpriced, but just bring us something. Well, no, how can you beat that, right? The sellers, smart sellers and smart brokers, they price the property already discounted. And we have one example of that on the Upper West Side, 1 bedroom, 4th floor walk-up at $900,000. We priced it correctly. We had 17 people at the first open house in this market, which is the buyer's market, and we got 2 offers. We are expecting another 2. And you can see that because the price is right, is not under, is not overpriced. And if I recall, I think our seller wanted to overprice it slightly, but Martin and I, we explained her what's the best situation in this case, and she went with our recommendation. So it's very important to listen to your broker, because we know how the market is, and the sellers are usually the last people to know if it's a buyer's market.
No, that makes sense, Ramses. Great. Now, what is kind of a rule of thumb for buyers out there? Do you automatically just knock off 15% of the purchase price and that's your opening offer? Or what's the context to that?
That was the first thing, that was the next thing that I was gonna say, that, buyers should consult with their brokers and ask to make comps and, ask for a suggestion where the price should be. And, if your broker says, let's just go 10% off because that's what everybody's doing, well, there you have your answer. That's not the right broker for you. The right thing is do comps and come up, and what's priced right, it's priced right, and what's overpriced, it's overpriced. But you can't just come in at 10% under the property that is priced right, because you're just gonna lose out on it.
Very good. That's very helpful. So it sounds like that some sellers have already adjusted to the market changes, and if you're the buyer and that price has already been adjusted, you may end up paying the full price because they already gave you the discount. The good news is you're not still going to have so much competition. And then other sellers who, again, what you mentioned, Ramses, are sort of quote unquote the last to know. They still may be pricing at 2021 levels, and those are the ones where you would offer less or a bigger discount. But then again, the trade-off is you don't know if how serious those sellers are either, right, Ramses?
Yeah, right. And you can take as an example Alex. He's a smart broker. As an example of the townhouse in Brooklyn, like I said, unless it's a townhouse in Brooklyn, it's a buyer's market. Alex knows that. So how many offers? 11 offers you guys outbid for your 2.7 million?
You're on mute, Alex.
Mute it again.
Okay. I was going to say it was only 2 other offers.
Oh, 2 other offers. The other ones were, on our
sell side. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But either way, you educated them, you told them what the situation is, and you won the bidding, which he outlined.
Exactly. And that goes back to the conversation about inventory. For high quality, brand new, gut renovated townhouses in a very specific, desirable part of Brooklyn, there were 7 of them. We looked at all of them and we didn't like any of them. And there was one more that was being constructed literally off market that we got a special tour to. And my buyers, they said, should we wait? And I said, no, we have to get this now. And I think we're very lucky, I think. And they're thrilled. So
lucky comes with a skill.
Yes, and experience, right?
Right. So that kind of goes back to you, Alex. I don't, we've talked pretty much all about buyer, right? Buyer's market, buyers is what you do. But if you're a seller, what do you do, right? I mean, look, from my point of view is that, prices are off from the woohoo free money 2021. But look, we're still way above 2019, 2020 in terms of pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was Halloween recently, and there were a bunch of different Halloween decorations on all the houses in my neighborhood. And a lot of people put up like skeletons, right? And I would take a picture of a skeleton and post it on Instagram. And my caption would be, this seller waited to get the same price that his neighbor got in 2021. He died. You cannot get a price from the past. It is impossible. So like Ramsey said, sellers are the last to know because they don't want to know. They don't want to know that their property is going to sell for less. But that is the reality of the marketplace we're in right now. Could that change in 2 to 5 years? Maybe. But if someone has to sell, they have to list at the market or even slightly below. Ramsey's was, I think, kind of describing a townhouse sale that we had in Crown Heights a couple of months ago that we priced right at the market, if not just slightly below. And what did we have? We had 30 people come to the first open house because everyone said, what is this? A townhouse at this price? We have to see it. And we ended up getting 12 offers and, multiple offers above the asking. So that was a slam dunk. But there's basically 3 levers that a seller has. One is price at the market or below, get people excited and interested and emotionally invested in seeing this property. People kind of lose their minds. We have to see it, versus a property that's overpriced. they'll look at it online and say, they're crazy, and never go look at it. The second lever that a seller has is presentation. You want the home to look amazing. Does it need a paint job? Do you need to declutter? Do you need to maybe move out, go to wherever you're going, and let us come in and style and stage the property to make it look amazing? We've done that for multiple properties in this market, and it has been a game changer. That townhouse in Crown Heights, that was completely staged and styled by the man, the myth, the legend, Sean Wilson, who will hopefully be chatting about his staging skill. But that made a huge difference. We were able to go from listing to sign contract, I think in something like 3 weeks, which in this marketplace is unheard of. And the last lever that a seller has is patience. Patience. This isn't a frothy, frenetic, frenzied market where you're going to have crazy, crazy open houses and multiple offers, except for some of our properties. This is going to be a little bit of a slug. Yeah, exactly. This is going to be a little bit of a slog, but if you priced it well, you presented it well, just be a little bit patient. Let the buyers who are out there looking at all the available supply and considering this kind of option and that kind of option, let them circle back. So I'm telling sellers, look, let's give it 30 days. Let's take a breath and let the market do its thing.
That's great, Alex. And one thing we've almost exclusively talked about pricing, but what you mentioned was presentation, which is a huge factor, right? Because interest rates are higher or borrowing costs are higher. People want a property that's in as move-in condition as possible. Even, I don't want to paint the apartment. I'm spending all my money on the mortgage, that type of thing. Alex, do you have a couple of tips on what works for presentation, and then for these sellers on how to get the most dollar for their space?
Yeah, absolutely. If someone is in a position to paint their apartment, they definitely should. That is probably the cheapest way to make an apartment look good, fresh, new, clean. People want that. People want the illusion that they could just move in. Number two, I think I mentioned it, decluttering. A lot of times people stick so many things into closets and they have things and knickknacks hanging out all over their home. Invest in getting a storage unit and declutter. Consider it phase one of your future move. Okay. Presenting a home with closets that are 25% empty will have people saying, wow, there's so much space in these closets, versus like if they open a closet and it's full to the brim, they're going to say, wow, there's not a lot of space in here. This is a psychological phenomenon. And then beyond that, I mentioned Sean's amazing staging and styling talent and skill. A lot of times, if we're not able to just bring our full suite of furniture, what we can do is use your current furniture and your current accoutrements and design aesthetic and kind of rejigger it to make it look attractive and as appealing as possible. We literally just did this 2 weeks ago for this awesome condo in Clinton Hill, 2-bed, 2-bath. There's a young family living there. They got a little baby. They got stuff everywhere. And they gave us the keys to their condo for 3 to 4 hours. We finagled and finagled. We made this space look like it was a runway model, looking so sharp. We took our photos and then we put the place back. And when the sellers walked in, they were like, did you even do anything? And because we have the photos, I know we did. And when they saw the photos, they were shocked. They're like, is this our place? And I said, yes. But then before the open house, what they did was they went and got a storage unit. They took a lot of the clutter that we kind of moved around and put into the hallway and into one of the rooms when we were taking photos of the other room. And now the place looks amazing and it's completely show ready. And we've only been on the market for like a week or two, but those sellers are like, what's happening? What's going on? Do we have offers yet? And I'm telling them, let's be patient. Why? Why can we be patient? Because the presentation looks great.
I'm sorry, Sean, you're not on mute. Oh, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, the presentation looks great. Thumbs up from Zoom. And the price is great. So let's just give it 30 days and see where we end up.
That's great, Alex. So quickly, and we've had these back-to-back live examples of a property that's not properly staged. You're leaving $70,000 to $150,000 on the table. Number one. Number two, you don't have to redo a kitchen and a bath, but it needs to be clean and neat. If you have a leaky faucet, spend the $200. You don't have to spend 20 grand on a new bathroom. We're very good at selling, or brokers are very good at selling the idea that it's a functional, clean bath now, but you can renovate it to your heart's desire in the future. I wanted to touch really quickly here. Wow, the time goes by fast. Clement, if for some reason buying is not on the table for you right now, tell us a little bit about the rental market. Last year it was kooky crazy and you couldn't get an apartment. We had apartments at bidding wars. What's going on now?
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, definitely. Last year was different than what I'm seeing right now. There is definitely a slowdown in the rental market. That being said, I would say the rental market is in a very healthy state. So the vacancy in New York gone up in the past few months, but it's right about 3%. According to the data that we have at Compass, it's 3.07%, which is high for New York. That's the highest vacancy for rentals in the last 3 years. But still, if I give you some context, that's half of what the national average is. The national average is 6.8%. So we do see more listings. We do see more places up for rent. And with bigger inventory, landlords are offering concessions. And you remember back in COVID when landlords were offering concessions because they were completely desperate to find tenants. After that, the market went very strong, and all those concessions went away. Now we have some concessions back. And then again, some data on that. We have the average concession right now is 1.3 months of free rent for September. I'm pretty sure it's gonna go up for October and November. But let's say if you're looking for a place right now to rent, there is a good chance that you might get 1 or 1.5 months free on your lease. Another thing that I'm noticing, a lot of landlords are offering longer term leases, let's say 19, 20-month leases. They kind of want you to lock you down on a longer term lease. They want your lease to end in a summer cycle, because usually the summer cycles are the ones that prices are higher, demand is stronger, and landlords always want their lease to end up on a summer cycle. So we do represent a lot of landlords, and we represent a lot of people who are regular clients looking to rent a place. So if you're looking to find a deal right now in the winter, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find a really good apartment for a price that's lower than what you used to pay last year, but still is going to be higher than 2 years ago. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The state of the market. I want to keep it brief because I know we're running kind of out of time. So yeah.
That's great, Clement. Thanks for all that data points. I think it's really great. So I think kind of in Rihanna, pretty much we're here at 5:45 already. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So Michael, thanks again, or Mike, thanks again at Wells Fargo for helping us out, giving some insights on the interest rates. Gary, thank you as well for giving us some insider information with attorney things. And Alex, you were great, giving us an overview, helping out a little bit here with sellers, what you can do. And Ramses, thank you for all those buyer tips. That was very helpful. And Clement bringing it home with the rental market. So it seems like a lot of great options for everybody. Thank you for listening in on us here at the Martin Eiden team with our fall market update. Take care, guys.